talk about the Bill of Rights. Amendment 3.
Introduced to Congress by James Madison in 1789, this amendment was passed unanimously due to the outrage towards the intolerable quartering acts passed by the British, allowing British troops to force any private residents to take care of them. The amendment made it clear that the government would not be allowed to house soldiers in private residences.
So what would our lives be like without this amendment?
If this amendment did not exist, citizens today would still have to care for soldiers even in times of peace against their will.
Amendment 13.
The 13th Amendment, passed in 1864, abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in the United States. Before this amendment was passed, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, which proclaimed the freedom of slaves in the 10 remaining Confederate states. However, it did not affect the status of slaves in the border states that had remained loyal to the Union. President Lincoln had concerns that the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 might be reversed or found invalid after the war. He saw a constitutional amendment as a more permanent solution. However, he had remained outwardly neutral on the amendment because he considered it politically too dangerous.
What would our lives be like without it?
Without this amendment, I would be forced to work in the cotton fields all day until my master told me to stop. Amendment 24.
This amendment was passed in 1962 and stated that the government could no longer tax people for voting. At the time of passage, Virginia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Texas still had this tax in place. This is because after the right to vote was extended to all races in 1870, a poll tax was issued among states to try to restrict these voting rights amongst African Americans, exemplifying the Jim Crow laws. Although the amendment was passed in 1962, some states were rather hesitant to enact on the law, as Arkansas, for example, was especially resilient, and the state waited 2 years to finally give up the poll tax. Another complication was the fact that some people thought the amendment didn't go far enough to protect the rights of African American voters. Representative John Lindsay of New York commented on the issue, stating, "If we were going to have a constitutional amendment, it ought to be a meaningful one."
What would our lives be like without this amendment?
Before the amendment was passed, the average cost of the poll tax was just around $1. If the poll tax were still around today, taking inflation into consideration, Americans would have to pay $18 just to get their voices heard.
Resources used.